So, you know, but in any case and scenario, one of the things that we actually note is the army cracking down hard within Punjab. The kind of stuff which is being reported, even by the Reporters Without Borders and Voice of America, and many actually people within Pakistan today are talking about, women being arrested, which has never happened before within the country. They've never put that kind of a hand on a woman. I mean, they would arrest them, they would put them inside, but the way that the treatment has been done, or the software update as they call it, is a bit harsh. That has to permeate within the force. How do you think the army itself is internalizing the factor that what we used to do in Balochistan, in Sindh, not in Sindh, but Balochistan, in the frontier, and in probably in there Kashmir, is today happening on the streets of Lahore and Islamabad?
See, I don't agree with you there. I mean, why has this reaction taken place? And where has the reaction, where has the action been taken which has provoked this reaction? You see, one statement of Asim Munir was very significant. I think he made it in Sialkot or Lahore. He said, we cannot accept, which is not condolable or pardonable, the effort to drive a wedge between the people and the army. And this is what Imran Khan tried to do, trying to drive a wedge between the people and the army. The army's strength is the people. And if you try and drive a wedge, second, they attack the symbols of army's dominance. The GHQ is the sanctum sanctorum of the Pakistan. Corps Commander Lahore is probably the most important corps in Pakistan. And then they demolished and vandalized the statues of the martyrs. The people who have given their lives for Pakistan, their statues and their monuments were vandalized. So this is something which is totally unacceptable to the army, the rank and file of the army. हमारे अगर कल हम शहीद होंगे और हमारे लिए कोई a memorial is made and somebody comes and shatters it. So I don't think so they're going to be upset with the reaction even in Punjab. In fact, it's in Punjab where all this has been done, all the damage has been done except for that one or two incidents in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Most of the vandalism was done in Punjab. So the reaction of the army is strong in terms of picking up people, trying them under the Army Act, and even women. For example, this lady Khadija Shah, whatever, Khadija Shah, who is the granddaughter of the former army chief Asif Nawaz Janjua. She was leading the protest or the attack on the corps commander's house.
Yes,
so they're going to make an example that not even somebody who is connected to the army is going to be spared. So irrespective of what other human rights organizations and people may say, the army is, you see what has happened. Let me read you a quote.
Please.
Why does the army rule? So, Major General Sher Ali Khan Pataudi told General Yahya Khan in 1969 that the key to the army's dominance was the army's ability or the army's perception being perceived by the people as a mythical entity, a magical force that would succor the people in times of need when all else failed. The army was the final guarantor of Pakistan and its well-being. Now, what Imran Khan has done is to break or seriously dent that charisma, that magical entity. How does the army get that entity, that charisma back in the eyes of the people? It can do so in one of two ways. A, cracking down very hard on the people who did this. And in Punjab, people will appreciate strong action. Other thing is you attack India. I don't think so they're in a position to do anything with India right now.
They tried it.
Yeah. So this is where the army and Asim Munir, you see, they were, I think, from the 9th to about the 12th or the 13th. Asim Munir was on shaky ground. But then he has come back very strongly. He's managed to get a grip on the corps commanders, the special corps commanders meeting when they decided to go on the Army Act and to crack down very heavily. Because, they cannot accept this to happen again. If Imran Khan keeps mobilizing crowds and they go and attack once again, so they have to set an example today. And a lot of people say that when Imran Khan had attacked the PTV station, when he was in opposition, I think in 2016, this would not have happened if strong action was taken then. But because he was allowed to get away, in May 22 when he burned those trees of Islamabad again in November when he staged the long march. So, Imran Khan's got the impression that he has protection, he has impunity, he can do what he likes. So, therefore, this action is being taken now, very strong action, maybe even more severe than required. But the army is going to make sure that they teach these Yuthias, as they are called, a lesson that they or anybody else will not forget. That you can't mess with the army in this manner. Peaceful protests, the army would have tolerated if they staged a dharna, even if they staged a 10 days dharna in front of the Corps Commander's house, it was fine. It's okay. But to go and burn his house down and steal his property and guy in track pants pleading with them not to, that is something the aura of the army, the charisma, as I mentioned, has been very badly bruised. And it'll take the army years to scrub this from the memory of the people because it's gone viral. People will keep playing this up at the drop of a hat.
We'll get to that. So we'll get to that. How will he repair? I want to identify the problem first. The problem, and you've kind of hinted to the problems. Of course, Imran Khan is a big one. The civil society and that thought process that Imran Khan has been able to instigate is a big one. Now I'm going to ask you a sort of a.
There's a third one, if I can just say it here. You
Sure.
see, the third issue is the cohesion of the Pakistan army. Now, Imran Khan tried to dent that, to create a wedge. Apart from domestically, internationally, since the nuclear button is with the army, I think China, US, Russia, India, all of us are equally worried that if the army's cohesion breaks, if there is a civil war kind of a thing, I don't think the civil war will happen, a revolt within the army. But in case it does, what happens to the nuclear button? So therefore, this was the other problem, that everybody was looking at it very, very. The Chinese foreign minister, who was 3 days before, was in Pakistan, and he said, "Get your act together. Go in for political cohesion, sort out your problems, so that you can focus on the economic issues." That is the first time ever a Chinese leader has publicly castigated Pakistan,
or any other country for that matter.
Yeah. So this was something which was, all weather, higher than Himalayas, and sweeter than honey kind of relationship. There was once earlier also with the Pakistan embassy, had the Chinese embassy in Islamabad that issued a stinging criticism of when they couldn't get their route. There was a controversy over the route of CPEC. And the Chinese embassy had issued a strong statement, again, maybe 2016 or 2007, something like that. And this is the second time, but this time was very serious, because there was the foreign minister. Now,
Verbally said that.
Yeah. So the cohesion, that's the third issue. The cohesion of the Pakistan army and the impact it has on the international community vis-a-vis the nuclear weapons.
Now, sir, this army is, of course, based on a lot of political loyalty, military loyalty, and I'm putting political loyalty right at the beginning because at the end of it, we know it's a very highly politicized army. It's about factions, and that one faction kind of takes the cake, and they become the leaders, and the rest of the formations kind of conform. So it is a political entity. I'm open to correction to that, sir. So political entity, it's an economic entity, which is, I think, the most important entity that they want to maintain, because that's where the money is at the end of it. And of course, it is a military entity in itself, which has pride of what it's done during the Zarb-e-Azam and all these operations and stuff like that. And in their mind, the operations that they won with India as well. Just these three factors. Now, politically speaking, when we talk about all this Gutism, which forms in the army, now this is a dangerous point because you have certain inborn people who will probably be sympathetic to what Imran Khan is going through within the army.
The groupism which you talk about, see, everybody has favorite. You have a favorite cricket team, you have a favorite hockey team. You can have but this kind of groupism which you are indicating about people, the only groupism is there of the chief and the corps commanders. Everybody falls in line with that. I think that is the most. It's not a political army in the sense of having favorites among the political parties. Yes, they may vote for a political party, but not the kind of groupism which you are saying. It's a political army because it interferes in politics. Mm-hmm. That, it does political engineering to make sure that their favorite politicians, but that is a corporate decision of the army. The army decide, okay, we have enough of the Sharifs, enough of the Bhuttos, let's bring in Imran Khan. That's a corporate decision.
It's so there's political. No morality or emotion or anything which is
No,
involved.
no,
It's a
they just feel.
practical.
See, first of all, the army has total contempt for politicians, and this has been documented. I've documented in my first book.
Yeah,
There's the
first book.
contempt. They
Yes.
feel that if left to themselves, the politicians will sell the country down the drain. So they have to rein the politicians in, especially where security issues are concerned. Right? So they do political engineering, which they have been doing for the last 70 years, to see that this politician can come in and then he will look after the economic interest, the social interest, and things like that. But otherwise, this groupism which you mentioned in the army of being of politicians. You see, the other thing is that I may support, let's say, the Pakistan army, one uh, general may support Imran Khan. But that does not mean that he's going to get his troops to mutiny against the leadership of the army. Support is one thing, sympathy is one thing. But to actively pursue it, to pick up the gun in one battalion fighting against the other, I don't think so that's going to happen in the Pakistan army. It won't.
Have there been incidents of this kind before, sir?
There have been sporadic incidents of revolt led by a small coterie of people.
Mhm.
There have been, you know, several times in the past. But that is very, very limited. It was not, there have been in the Navy, for example, there have been even in the Army. I've documented this in my book. I
Yes.
forget, I can't recall the specific incident, but they are
There's one
documented there.
brigadier you spoke about who tried this twice.
Yeah, Abbasi, once I think.
Abbasi.
And he was picked up and court-martialed and things. So, but it's very, very limited. I won't say there's a whole scale. The only one time there was a serious was after the 71 war, where the corps in Bahawalpur, which had not been deployed in the war, those people were extremely upset at the way the Pakistan army had collapsed in the east and the surrender. So they wanted to march to Islamabad and get rid of Yahya Khan. Then Tamer's sense prevailed, and they sent about 3 or 4 officers who talked to Gul Hassan, who was the chief of general staff, and they said, "Look, Yahya Khan has to go, otherwise there is going to be mutiny." So that better sense prevailed, and then Yahya Khan afterward left. That was the only incident that I recall of this happening. But that was because of the defeat in war. To think that the army will behave, or section of the army will behave like Yuthias and come out in support of Imran Khan against their brother officers, I don't see that happening. Also, a practical situation. The army knows, or officers know, that their privileged position in Pakistani society is because the army as an institution dominates the polity. If they attack that institution of the army, what happens to them? They'll be the ones who will be defeated. They will lose all their perks and privileges. So why would anyone, for his own self-interest, demolish the very institution that is giving him these perks and privileges?